New Mexico is a travel destination for many people, including those of us who call the state home. How often do you think about the environmental impact of your travels? Author Ashley Biggers has written extensively about travel in New Mexico. Her latest book, Eco Travel New Mexico, highlights places, including hotels and restaurants, that operate on sustainable principles. Correspondent Megan Kamrick sat down with her recently to hear what she found in her research for the book.
Choosing where to go on a trip can be a challenge, especially if you are mindful of your impact on the environment, local residents, and wildlife. Ashley Biggers is here to share some tips and ideas. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with a definition. What does ecotourism mean?
So I borrowed my definition both from the World Tourism Organization and also from the International Ecotourism Society. And essentially, ecotourism is just responsible travel to places that conserves the local environment and the cultures that you're going to encounter there. So things that we look for in determining whether something counts as eco-travel is if you're minimizing impact, if you're learning about the local environment and the cultures that you're encountering, and also if your travel there actually benefits conservation and the people who live in the communities you're visiting.
So what kinds of things are we talking about? Is it only like hiking and camping, or can you hang out in a spa and eat local food? Does that count?
Absolutely, absolutely. In this guide, I really took a holistic look at eco-travel, and I wanted to touch on all different kinds of people and interests and kind of every element of the traveler's experience. So yes, there are definitely places to camp and hike and pueblos to tour, but also I looked at green hotels so you know where to stay, great local restaurants with ingredients grown, from local fields, and also outfitters, so that if you aren't quite as adventurous as some people and you want a little bit more of a guided, curated experience, you know who to hire.
So what about some examples of travel or exploration that aren't necessarily sustainable or environmentally friendly? What would those look like?
Well, that would look more like staying in chain hotels that don't have good eco practices, like not changing the sheets every day, or using containers that are refillable, going to big amusement parks and things like that that don't have recycling practices or anything like that in place. So it's kind of the other end of the travel spectrum.
Or if they're built on sensitive areas, or?
Exactly.
Okay.
And we also want to look at how you're getting different places. So we don't want to discourage people from traveling places, because by experiencing these places, it creates an affinity with them and you're more interested in protecting and preserving them. But you want to be mindful about how you get certain places and where you stay and where you eat and how you spend your money and whether it really stays in the community that you're visiting or not. And one of the great things about eco-travel is that we're also seeing people lean towards authentic travel. And this is a great way to have authentic travel wherever you're going, because you're meeting the people who live and work in those communities, you're eating the local food, you're experiencing the local culture, and so it's really an authentic way to travel as well as an environmentally friendly one.
I know there's been a lot of talk about authenticity in travel and art, so what does that necessarily look like?
For me, what that looks like is experiencing the place as the local people might. So instead of going to chain restaurants, I know a lot of people that they travel abroad and they end up eating at McDonald's because it's familiar to them. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily authentic travel, because that's an experience that we can have anywhere. So going to local restaurants, going to local breweries. There's even a brewery in the book that has environmentally friendly practices. That's Taos Mesa Brewery mm-hmm. up in Taos, of course. So that's a good way to tap into the local community. And of course, because you're patronizing small businesses, more of those dollars stay in the community that you're visiting as well.
So you were born and raised in New Mexico.
Correct.
And you've written about our state before in other books and magazine articles. What surprised you in your research for this particular book?
A few things surprised me. First of all, I was surprised at the absolute wealth of places that I had to consider for this book, because New Mexico is really primed for this sort of travel. We have a wonderful natural landscape to experience, as well as rich cultures to explore here. And so when I started out looking at this book, I had 50 destinations, and then it crept up to 75, and then I ended up at 86, which is a little bit of a random number, but I feel like really well represents the curated experiences that I wanted to write about in the book. Another thing that I discovered is that although I had patronized some places before, I hadn't really explored them through the eco-travel angle. And so there were things that I learned about that were happening behind the scenes. For example, at Verde in Santa Fe, which is a great place for local juice. Yeah, and they've actually expanded to some food service as well. But what I didn't know that was happening behind the scenes was not only do they try to use local and organic ingredients, but they try to buy from farms that are using sustainable practices, which extends even to paying their farmers a living wage. And also they have a really aggressive composting program. So they take all of that food waste and make sure that it is reused in a responsible way. But because they have so much natural vegetable fiber from their juicing process, they've begun making food. So they've taken vegetable pulp and turned it into chips that you can dip into hummus and things like that. And so they're really trying to use every element of the produce that they use. And so all of those things were happening behind the scenes that I didn't know about, but of course, as a customer, I was just enjoying great juice.
So the book recommends restaurants like Verde and lodges, even outfitting guides. How do you judge whether a business is sustainable? You mentioned some of the practices Verde had. What are some other things you look at?
Exactly. Well, I was really looking for exceptionality because in New Mexico, we're lucky to have a lot of restaurants that use local ingredients, but that wasn't enough to be included in the book. I was looking for places that used at least 60% of their ingredients being local. Most of the places featured in the book have upwards of 80%, particularly in the high season. I was also looking for sustainable practices like composting, and also places that give back. For example, Verde donates a portion of the tips left for employees to local community organizations.
So they must pay their employees really well, taking their tips.
They do pay their employees a living wage. So those were things that I was looking for on the restaurant side. For the outfitters, of course, most outfitters are educating the public about the natural landscapes that they're experiencing and the local cultures and history when they're going outdoors, which is fabulous, and we love to see that in place. And that's a key element, is that education portion. But additionally, I was looking for outfitters who also turn that around and give back to conservation. So for example, our Wild Llama Adventures, based out of Taos. Stuart Wild is an excellent guide and teaches about ecology and history, but he's also been instrumental in helping establish the Columbine Hondo Wilderness area and has been involved in the Rio Grande del Norte monument efforts. He also gives a portion of his proceeds to those conservation efforts. And so it's not just enough to experience those local landscapes, it's also about giving back to them from the proceeds of your business.
I went on one of his llama tours. That was very fun.
They're very fun. And people are like, why do you want to hike with llamas? It's like, why not?
They carry your stuff.
It's really fun. They carry your stuff.
So, a lot of people might think, oh, I can't travel in winter, I'm just going to hibernate. What are some sustainable travel ideas or destinations you could recommend in the coming months?
Well, winter is actually a fabulous time to explore southern New Mexico because usually their temperatures kind of exclude summer travel. So this is a great time to go visit Carlsbad Caverns, which I know a lot of New Mexicans haven't crossed off their bucket lists yet, as well as White Sands National Monument. Silver City is a great winter destination, although it is still mountainous and you can experience snow there. Staying a night in the Bear Mountain Lodge there, which is a green hotel, and hiking in the Gila Wilderness, as well as visiting the Gila Cliff Dwellings are great winter activities to do.
Las Cruces area with the Organ Mountains.
Absolutely.
If someone wanted to take a trip in central and northern New Mexico, what are some places they should consider when they're building an itinerary?
Well, we're lucky that a lot of the ecotourism destinations are kind of centered along the Rio Grande Valley, which is no surprise since that's where a lot of our tourism takes place as well. A great place to have a staycation here in Albuquerque is at Los Poblanos, which recently underwent a huge renovation and addition. They doubled the number of their guest rooms. They also rebuilt and retrofitted their dairy barn to include an expanded restaurant, Campos, and they have a brand new use farm store space as well. And this is a great green hotel that's in our very own backyard. They use eco-friendly cleaning materials, and laundry detergents, and they have low energy use lighting, low flow toilets, all those wonderful things. Also, you're getting that farm to table experience at Campos because many of the ingredients are grown right there on site or by local farms also in the Rio Grande Valley. And so that's a great one-stop shop to have a great green staycation. Taos is also a fabulous ecotourism destination. It's really easy to go to that town and you practically trip over eco-travel destinations. So for example, this winter, an item that is not included in the book just because of timing is the Blake Hotel, which just opened in Taos Ski Valley, and it's the first new hotel in the valley in decades. But it just happens to be a LEED certified silver hotel, and so they used a lot of local materials in their building practices. All their furniture is made in the USA. They have water bottle fill stations. And a fun detail is that when you drink wine at the restaurant after a long day on the slopes, those wine bottles are donated to building earth ships out on the Taos Mesa. And so you can drink wine and still feel good about it.
And you can go see how they build the earth ships.
Exactly.
I've been to that center. Exactly. That's interesting. You have an entry on something called Pueblitos, constructed by the Diné people. What are they and how can people visit them?
So there's a lot of unknowns about the Pueblitos, which are located in northwestern New Mexico, many on Navajo lands, but some not. They were thought to be sort of security outposts, so they're very remote sites that were built in the Pueblo style, which is unusual for the Navajo people, of course, who are traditionally a nomadic people. But these were built sort of at the turn of the 18th century, and so visiting them requires some white knuckle driving in some occasions to reach these locations. But they're beautiful outposts, and there's one described that's just outside of the Farmington area that is easier to get to, and it's this very interesting site which is built up on top of a huge boulder, and it's kind of like a one-room tiny little place where you would, it was very secure because once you climbed up, you could pull up the ladder behind you and essentially be impermeable to attack, but be able to look out for any sort of invasions happening.
Yeah, it was so interesting. I had no idea about those. So that passage was really interesting. So what are places that are endangered we should go to now before they change?
Yes, unfortunately, public lands are always under attack. For example, the Organ Mountains National and Desert Peaks National Monument down near Las Cruces, and the Rio Grande del Norte National Monument were two monuments that were under review recently by the Secretary of the Interior, who did recommend some changes in access and recreation to both of those sites. Of course, the report also made some critical errors in describing the sites. For example, it noted that the Organ monument was on the border. It is not. So things like that have to be mitigated in terms of those recommendations. But those are great places to experience now while they're still intact as they have been. Another great place to experience is Chaco Canyon, which is unfortunately under assault by oil and gas development. There are some leases under consideration that place rigs as close as 10 miles away to park boundaries. And so those sites, of course, the park protects some of them, but the nature of Chacoan culture is that expanded across all of northwestern New Mexico and into other states as well. And so some of that archaeological history and living history, because of course the Puebloan people still view that as part of their present, not just their past, could be disturbed by this oil and gas development. And so that's a great place to experience as soon as possible while it's still intact.
Because it's a dark sky park too, so
Absolutely.
If there's more development around it, that could impact it even if it's not in the park.
Yes, so people may not know that there's the International Dark Sky Association, which grants sort of hat tips to places around the world that are great for night sky viewing, because of course with all the urban development there we see fewer stars with our light pollution, and so that's one of the few places in the world that has been recognized for its dark skies and its ability to see the stars as the ancient Puebloans once saw them. And so So they have star parties once a month that people can experience, and of course, going out during solstice and equinox are fabulous times because you can see how the Puebloans reflected their knowledge of the cosmos into the architecture there, and they also have, you know, opportunities to view stars through their observatory that is there on site.
Well, Ashley Biggers, the book is really interesting. I want to thank you so much for coming and talking to us about ecotourism in New Mexico.
Thank you.